Welcome to the Cosmic Connection. This is your place to explore the beauty and order of the cosmos.
And your connection to it all.
My name is Amanda Walsh, and I'm the founder of Astrology Hub.
And I'm Rick Levine, your cosmic navigator.
Now let's dive in.
Let's do it.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to our September forecast episode of the Cosmic Connection. And before we dive in, we have a little slideshow or a couple pictures to share with you from the ISAR conference that we just came back from last week. It was such a blast. I can't even tell you how amazing it was.
And when Amanda says we, she means her and I and 750 other people.
Yes. And I got to meet tons of people from the Astrology Hub community, inner circle members, people who listen to this Cosmic Connection and love it. And I got to hug Rick like 100 times, which was the best. And we actually did a special episode that we'll be releasing on Saturday where I was interviewing Rick and Jen Zart at the same time. And it was fascinating. So we'll be releasing that soon, but we wanted to show you a few pictures from the event. And I wanted to take this opportunity to celebrate Rick because he won 2 very prestigious awards at this event. And so, yes, you better show your trophy.
I have one of you can't really read it because of the reflection. But this, I guess that if I hold it like that, that kind of almost.
There we go.
It's basically ISAR, which is the International Society for Astrological Research. And it's the favorite astrology YouTube channel. I won another one also for social media general, but that's the one I deserve, not the other one. But thank you for both of them, ISAR.
Well, it's not just ISAR. It was like a popular vote. So the people were voting, which I was so thrilled to even be nominated. Astrology Hub got nominated for Best YouTube Channel and Best Audio Podcast. We didn't win, but I was so honored that we even got up on the board. So, Joe, could you share a few of the pictures? Okay, so this is the interview that Rick and I did, and then Jen joined us later. You can just kind of
Photo bomb.
What's that? But she was invited to the photo bomb. If you're listening on the podcast, this might be one to check out on YouTube. This was wait, stay there, Joe. After, can I tell them what we were talking about, Rick? Like just a taste?
Sure.
Okay. Rick is working on 3 different books.
Yeah, just tell them about one of them.
Okay. One of them is based on the Cosmic Connection episodes that we've done over the last 2 years. So it's going to be basically putting all the transcripts and all the different teachings that we've covered on the Cosmic Connection into a book format. So we were talking about that. And then I said, we got to commemorate this moment. So we took this silly selfie, and there's a few other ones. Okay. This is Rick accepting his award, which was so much fun. And then you can see on the thing next to it, that's all the YouTube channels that were nominated for the awards. So Chris Brennan, Rick Levine, Astrology Hub, Nadia Shah, and Pam Gregory, who I also love Pam Gregory's YouTube channel as well. And what else do we have here? Oh, I have to tell you this story. So Rick Levine has been going to these conferences for 25 years, and his tradition is to bring a pack of a bunch of different types of stickers, and he carefully selects stickers to put on your name tag. So this is a picture of Rick with my daughter Madeline, who's 13, and this was her first like big girl kind of work event. She was an intern in our booth for Astrology Hub, and she just, oh my God, I swear the word.
Whoop, you froze, I think.
This is a picture of Madeline with Rick after he picked out the stickers for her.
She did an awesome job. She might as well have been on the crew as a paid person. She was great.
Yeah, she loved it. She cried. She hugged Omari at the end and started bawling. Omari Martin. She was just like, I think she just didn't realize how cool all the astrologers are. And she just fell in love, and everybody was so kind to her. It was so sweet. Do we have any more pictures, Joe? Or is that it? Oh, okay. So this is Rick with Jessica, who is on the Astrology Hub team, and of course, Joe G on the Astrology Hub team. So super sweet. And that was at a little party that we hosted at Astrology Hub to thank the astrologers that we love working with. I actually got to hug Anne Orderly for the first time at our party, which was also a very special moment. And we're going to be sharing more pictures on all of our social media platforms. So if you follow us on Instagram and Facebook, check us out there. Okay. So here we go, Rick. What do we have ahead? September.
Complicated. I think that September feels like we're going, I don't want this to be the title, but it feels like we're going nowhere fast. In other words, Mars is in Gemini. Mars moved into Gemini a couple of weeks ago. And in Gemini, Mars is distracted and attracted. Mars, in Aries, Mars hits that gas pedal and it's ready to go. In Taurus, it works that gas pedal slowly and it doesn't really hit it until it knows exactly where it's going, how it's going to get there. It's determined. In Gemini, Mars will hit the gas pedal for any reason, even if it isn't aimed in the direction that it's going. And so it feels like things are speeded up because Mars in Gemini is fast. However, there's two things. Well, there's really three things. We'll hold on to one of them. There's two things immediately that slow us down. Number one, Mercury turns retrograde on September 9th. And because of that, Mercury is already slowing down right now at the beginning of September. And so Mercury slowing down to turn backwards on the 9th. There's that sense of we're not going as fast forward as we thought we might have been. That's number one. We'll talk more about Mercury retrograde in a few minutes. The second thing is Mars itself. Mars turns retrograde 2 months from today, actually 2 months from yesterday, on the last day of October. And although that seems like it's far away, Mars, when it's moving fast, moves through a sign in less than 2 months. Mars has been moving quickly, and starting a few months ago, it began to gradually slow down. And to just give you an idea of how slowed down Mars is, through the month of June, Mars was moving 22 degrees. That's like almost through an entire sign, 2/3 of a sign in a month. In July, it slowed down to 21 degrees. Not much of a slowdown, but a little. In August, that's last month, Mars slowed down to 18 degrees in the month. In September, Mars moves 14 degrees in a month. That's like 8 degrees in a month slower than it was. It's a third slower than it was a few months ago. And then it turns retrograde at the end of October. In October, Mars only moves 5 degrees for the whole month. Now, why is this important now? It's because Mars in Gemini, like I said before, speeds things up and it makes us feel like things are going faster. And I want to do this and I want to do that. No, that's a good idea. And I'll put that on hold so I can do this. But Mars is moving slower and we're not making as much progress as we thought we might, especially combined with Mercury retrograde. So there's a little bit of frustration this month. And so, maybe that going nowhere fast really does work, but there are some other things that indicate there are some breakthroughs and that and that we do maybe get somewhere, just not quite as quickly as we would have liked. So those are two opening thoughts for the month, and a lot more.
Okay, Rick, I don't know if I understand what you're saying about Mars retrograde. So you're saying that it's happening in 2 months from now. So
But
why?
it's already slowing down. In other words, a planet doesn't just stop and go retrograde.
Right.
Mars has been going through one sign every 2 months, and now it's already slowing down. And because it's moving into a sign that's normally associated with speed, but it's not moving as fast, it's going to make us a little crazy. It's like a disassociation kind of, because we feel like we should be going faster than we are because Mars is in Gemini, and yet something odd is happening because it's just slowing down gradually all this month, September, all next month, October, until the end of October, it actually stops to go retrograde, and it goes retrograde. It doesn't turn direct until January. Mars is a very strange retrograde planet, and normally we associate Mars with going ahead and going ahead forcefully. That's what Mars is about. So we might be a little like confused as to what the heck's going on. Why do we feel like we're spinning so many wheels and running so quickly, and even things are moving faster than they were last month, not only on an interpersonal level, but on a global political level, and yet we're not getting to where we thought. It's almost like the finish line keeps getting moved back as we get closer to it.
Oh, okay. I can definitely feel that, what you're talking about. Okay, so we have going nowhere fast, but you said that there's a few things that are mitigating that. So what are those things?
Well, something that we've been talking about only for 2 years now is our old friends, the Saturn old Uranus new square, which again has its own story, because that was exact 3 times in 2001, which was kind of the backdrop of the year. And even then, I was talking about how that would come back into focus and build to a height in the autumn. And we're now approaching the autumn. So again, it's really interesting to see how these planets over time move, because at the beginning of August, at the beginning of August, Saturn and Uranus were about 4 degrees away from being an exact square. In astrology, we say that's a square with a 4-degree orb, 4 degrees away from being exact. By September 1st, that's today, the square is down to 1.5 degrees from being exact. That's working. That's powerful. If you have a square with a 1.5 degree orb, man, that stuff's cooking. So we now have that Saturn square Uranus cooking. And by the end of September, that square will be 40 minutes of orb, meaning that's 2/3 of a degree. 0.66 degrees from being exact by October 1st. And then by November 1st, it begins to widen again slowly back to about 1.5 degrees. And then by December, it's at 4 degrees, and then it continues to widen. So we are in the month of the maximum narrowing, where by the end of the month, it's down to as tight as it's going to get. And that's very powerful, because all the issues that we've seen politically, both on the national US front and on the global front, of tradition versus progressive, conservative versus radical, authority versus people process. All these things between Saturn holding back and Uranus blasting through, as this square heightens, that'll become more and more important again for the fourth and final time. But into that mix this month, we have several planets throughout the month that are aspecting Saturn and or Uranus. And perhaps the most significant and the slowest moving is Jupiter, which is retrograde. And Jupiter spends much of the month that at exactly the halfway point. You know, when you have a square, you have 2 planets at 90 degrees. They're like an intersection. You hit an intersection, and it's a 90-degree turn one way or the other. That's a square. Now, if you can imagine a half square. That's like a 45-degree angle between those two squares. That's where, between those 2 points pulling on the square, that's where Jupiter is. Jupiter this month is half square Saturn on one side and half square Uranus on the other side. And half squares work like squares. They're conflict, they're stress. And what's the stress here? Well, it's Jupiter retrograde in Aries saying, hey, we're going to go over all this again. All this stuff that really was new and is kind of still new, but we're now, as Jupiter goes retrograde, we're giving it another round. And as we do, it's creating problems with both Saturn, the authority and holding on to the status quo, and Uranus with breaking through and going forward to the future. It's creating stress on both sides of the equation. And then to make things even crazier, Mercury and the Sun both come through the point that is exactly opposite Saturn. And so we're going to feel like big things are happening. Jupiter. When the Sun opposes Jupiter, those are the two biggest things in the entire solar system. They're in a tug of war. We're in the middle. And so this is a very powerful month, even though it might feel like we're running in circles. We're not. We're making progress. We're just, it's like pulling back the bow again. Retrograde planets, retrograde Jupiter. In fact, all the outer planets are retrograde now. Pluto is retrograde. Uranus is retrograde. Neptune is retrograde. Jupiter is retrograde. Chiron is retrograde. Into this, Mercury turns retrograde and Mars is slowing down to go retrograde. It's like we're pulling the bow back, ready to spring forward again. And that won't be until next year, really. But it's a very dynamic month, but it's a screwy energy. It's hard to read because there's so many conflicting things going on.
So will that Jupiter energy will the Jupiter energy add to the Mars in Gemini energy, where we feel like things should be bigger or bolder, or like we feel like things should be moving, we feel like things should be expanding, and there's all this conflict and tension?
Yeah, you should be an astrologer.
Okay, I need to say something to tarot card reading in the comments right now. Please do not solicit people during these broadcasts. And we would never send things like, send me a friend request for a better life guaranteed satisfaction with reading. Just anybody that's in Facebook right now, I apologize. We will definitely block this person. But if you're hearing me, tarot card reading, please don't do this anymore here in this space, because everyone's here to learn and they're engaged with Rick. And
now, that was a functional use of Mars, because Mars creates boundaries. Mars is the planet that asserts so that a boundary is created. And that was great. That was a Mars in Gemini, using one's voice to create a boundary. Well done.
Perfect. Yes. Okay. All right, so we have all this conflicting energy. We have the retrogrades. We have this feeling like we should be speeding up. We should be expanding, but we're not. What else do we have going in September? Do you want to take us through the month?
Well, sure. Let's see. Well, okay. We start the month kind of on a relatively easy note. And in fact, it's interesting because this does involve Mercury opposite Jupiter, which, when Mercury turns retrograde, will be opposed Jupiter again later in the month. So we have so much of this. There's big things happening, and it's almost like we can overcommit, or someone can ask us to do more than we can possibly do. Because Mercury intellect and Jupiter expansive. And so on the opening of the month, Mercury, having just moved into Libra, is opposite the Sun. I'm sorry, Mercury just having moved, too many planets sometimes. Mercury just having moved into Libra is opposite Jupiter. And Mars in Gemini is actually forming a trine with Mercury and a sextile with Jupiter. let me just draw this out so we can kind of see this. Mercury and Jupiter, tug of war. Mercury and Libra saying be fair, be balanced, and think logically and look at both sides of the equation. That's Mercury mental in well-balanced, harmonizing Libra. Opposite that, we have Jupiter retrograde in Aries, basically saying take advantage of any opportunity that comes along. Say yes and then figure out what you're going to do. And into that, Mars, which is the planet associated with Aries. Remember, Jupiter's in Aries. Mars is sextiling Jupiter from one side, kind of encouraging that, giving it more energy. God, it feels good. We feel like we're finally making some progress. We feel like we can even feel optimistic and exuberant. Both of those are Jupiter-Mars kind of combo words. And that Mars being trined by Mercury, communication now can be very assertive, like you just did, and very clear and very fair and well balanced, because that Mercury in Libra is harmonizing with Mars. It's a wonderful kickoff for the month. But by the 9th, Mercury, which is slowing down, stations to go retrograde. And also on the 4th, Venus moves from Libra to Virgo. Now, Venus has been in Leo. I said Libra to Virgo. I meant Leo to Virgo. I've been doing too many planets for too many days now. ISAR was exciting and a lot of fun, but boy, it's like full immersion in the world of astro language. Venus, having been in Leo, is a lot of what we saw at the show. It was expressed love. It was things out in the open. Venus, desire, love, and Venus, what I want, and Leo, kind of heart-centered and magnanimous. And Venus and Leo is lovely and yummy. And when Venus moves into Virgo on the 4th, it's not like that energy closes down, but on Sunday the 4th, late in the day, when Venus moves into Virgo, rather than being attracted to that which is fun and pleasurable, we're now attracted to that which is useful and effective and efficient, because Venus in Virgo is less interested in having a good time than it is in getting something done and being accomplished. And so that Venus stays in Virgo throughout the entire month. Actually, the last day of the month, Venus moves into Libra, the following sign. But for September, we pretty much have Venus in Virgo. One other thing to consider here is that Mars is in Gemini, which is Mercury's home sign. Venus will be in Gemini most of the month. That's Mercury's other sign, other home sign. Many planets have two home signs.
Venus will be in Virgo, yeah? I think you said Venus will be in Gemini.
There I go again. Mars is in Gemini.
Mm-hmm.
The Sun and Venus in Virgo.
Okay.
And Gemini and Virgo are the two different home signs for Mercury, which is turning retrograde. More excitation of Mercury, logic thinking, and yet, whoops, it's slowing down and going backwards. Thank you for keeping me on the straight and narrow. I think I've said too many planet names in a week, and I'm done. No, I'm not done yet, obviously. But this setup is, again, part of the larger picture that we see again and again and again all month. So on the 9th, Mercury turns retrograde. On the 10th, the moon is in Pisces, and the moon in Pisces is opposite the sun in Virgo, and this is the full moon in Virgo. This full moon is intriguing, exciting. I like it. It's a full moon that is in Pisces, and it's approaching a conjunction with Neptune. And as it approaches a conjunction with Neptune, there's this sense of dream and fullness of imagination. And maybe all full moons are like that a little bit. But the sun in Virgo is saying detail, be specific, be exacting. And yet we're drifting and imagining on the inside. And yet the more exact aspect during this full moon is that the moon is sextile to Uranus, which means that the sun is trine to Uranus, coming into that trine, which is exact on the 11th. Uranus is the planet of breakthrough, upset, excitement, radical, revolutionary, genius. And I would imagine as we get closer to that full moon on the 10th, and then the sun's trine to Uranus on the 11th, we may see something again, both in our personal lives and in the larger global, national, international, political, economic scene. That's like a whoa, who would have thought that could have happened? Because that's what's going to happen when the sun trines Uranus. It's like changes that you've been trying to make in, let's say, in your personal life for years, hitting your head against the wall going, why can't I make this change? Why can't I make this change? And then the sun hits a trine to Uranus and the change happens. And it's almost like you didn't do anything. I mean, of course, you've been doing something in the past, but it's change that seemed impossible now seems more impossible not to happen. So how that'll play out, we can all have our guesses and our, gee, maybe this is the way it will play. But the cautionary here is that there are many ways for each and every planet to play out. And more importantly, Uranus is the planet of the unexpected. And of course, this is the classic astrological dilemma. How do you forecast or talk about possibilities if the planet is the planet of the surprise and unexpected? You can say, well, expect the unexpected. And then when the unexpected happens, you can say, see, I predicted it, but it's never what you think it's going to be. And so that, I think, is tied up into this full moon on the 10th, and then the breakthrough that will follow or will be part of it. I don't think the 10th and the 11th will necessarily be separate events. I think it will be one kind of process of breaking through the status quo. Then moving ahead to the jumping down to the 16th. On the 16th, we have Venus forming a square with Mars. And this is an intriguing aspect because Venus and Mars are the lovers. They're the cosmic lovers. Venus is what you want. Mars is how you get it. Venus is, and I get that we get into gender issues here, which have certainly been broken down and transformed, but Venus is the yin, the feminine energy, regardless of what gender someone might be. And Mars is the masculine. And when Venus and Mars are in conflict, one of two things can happen. One is absolute sparks flying that can be yummy sex or creativity or playfulness, sparring, dancing, because that kind of conflict fuels the ideas and the play that occurs when two people respect each other. On the other hand, when Venus and Mars square, if there's a lack of respect, then this can turn into differences of opinion that turn into arguments that turn into blowout, conflict. And so there's no way really here to tell in any individual situation which way it'll go. And one might say, well, what's the use of astrology then? Well, the use of astrology is knowing that this is coming to work toward finding those places where we can respect those we love, which hopefully we do anyhow, and allow them to respect us, because the behaviors that we have feeding into this time of maximum conflict. Remember, squares are conflictive, but conflict is also the origin of progress. I think it was William Blake in The Marriage of Heaven and Hell who wrote, without contrary, there is no progression. Now, the other thing about September 16th on that Venus square Mars day is that the moon will be in Gemini, like Mars, and the moon will actually come through that square, conjoining Mars and squaring Venus, exacerbating that energy. I think the 16th is an important day. And remember when we talked about the full moon and that full moon approaching Neptune? Well, it takes from the 10th, which is the full moon, all the way for the 16th, because it's 6 degrees off, for the sun to be exactly opposite Neptune. So on the same day that there's this Venus-Mars square and the Mars in Gemini, this is exciting from a standpoint of wordplay and languaging and debate and interaction. On top of that, that same day we have Venus opposed we have Sun opposed Neptune. Sun opposed Neptune is, again, heightened dreams, heightened illusion. It also can be deception. Neptune is the champion planet of fake news, because Neptune is about seeing things as we are, as Anais Nin said, seeing things as we are rather than seeing things as they are. So I think the 16th is an interesting day, and in some ways it's the full moon, the Mercury retrograde on the 9th, the full moon on the 10th, and leading right up to the Sun opposition Neptune on the 16th. This is quite a crazy week, but not necessarily difficult. As we move on, by the 18th, we have retrograde Mercury now opposing Jupiter. Remember, Mercury opposed Jupiter on the 1st and 2nd of the month. That was the opening volley for September. But now that Mercury is moving backwards, at least it looks like it is, Mercury opposes Jupiter again. And again, we might look back and see how we overcommitted. We might even say, this big idea that we had at the beginning of the month, it's even bigger than that, and take it even more, because remember that Mercury is going to back all the way up to Virgo, and then in October it's going to begin to go direct, and then by the end of October that Mercury will be opposite Jupiter for the third and final time. So this is a time of expanded Jupiter, interactions, thinking, logic, the big ideas, and we just need to be careful all month that we don't make big ideas too big, that we don't have expectations too great, that we don't think we're going to get to where we're going too quickly. It's this theme that happens again and again and again. Otherwise, we'll be discouraged. We'll give up. We'll say, I can't do this anymore. I came so close and now it's not happening. Well, it's that giving up that will make it not happen. It will happen, whatever it is, but it's going to take a bit of time. That brings us to the middle of the month, the 18th, when Mercury is opposite Jupiter. But unlike the beginning of the month, this time when Mercury retrograde is opposite Jupiter, the Sun on the same day is forming a trine with Pluto. This is like power in the bank. Normally we think of a bank as where we put money. Think of a battery that stores power. When the Sun trines Pluto, because Pluto is power, Pluto is the power to push through death and rebirth, to push through transformations. It's the power that drives the caterpillar to become a butterfly somehow. How does that happen? Pluto pushes this stuff into the underworld, the other world, and then it reorganizes it. And then it comes out in a higher level. And when the Sun is trine Pluto, it's like having, I'm thinking of maybe it's like the Energizer Bunny or the Duracell or something. This is not a brand commercial, but it's like having extra power in your batteries so that we actually have more energy to put towards these transformations, which is great, as long as we don't think that that additional energy is going to allow us to push through everything and get to where we're going today. Because if we actually buy into that, that's when we'll get crazy, because it's happening slower than we think it is, than it looks like. On the 19th, Venus forms a trine with Uranus. Now, remember, Uranus is the breakthrough planet. Uranus is the radical planet. Someone asked what the degree of the sun and the moon is during the full moon. That's easy. I can hit that right now. It is at 17 degrees 41 minutes, 17 degrees 41 minutes of Pisces and Virgo. The but back to the 19th with Venus trining Uranus. When Venus trines Uranus, we like things that other people think maybe we shouldn't like. It's out of the box. It's attraction to people, places, things, and ideas that we're not usually attracted to. Things that are different. The newness, the excitement, the even the kind of negative judgment on it might be more attractive to us than the thing itself. And so we like the idea of getting that adrenaline rush from being attracted towards something. It's actually some people thrive on this and some people fear it. I mean, it just depends. If you start being attracted towards things that are outside your normal safety zone, you might be terribly afraid that if you acted on something, that everything else in your life might fall apart. And that's a valid fear. Remember, when Venus trines Uranus, it's okay to feel attracted to whatever you feel attracted to. It doesn't mean you have to act on it. That's the key thing with Uranus and with that Venus trine. But Venus is highly active now. And remember, I talked earlier about the building square between Saturn and Uranus, the old and the new, the structured and the over crystallization that allows the structure to crack or to break. And as Venus makes a trine to Uranus on the 19th, it makes a quincunx to Saturn on the 20th. And again, I'm attracted to the progressive, to the breakthrough, to the revolution, to blow it all up. And I don't necessarily mean that physically, conceptually, on the 19th. And on the 20th, Saturn comes in and goes, whoa, don't do that, because then you'll lose this structure and that structure. So again, it's that dance between the old and the new again and again and again. And into that comes something that I mentioned at the very beginning, and that was Jupiter being right at the half square between the ever closing in square between stern Saturn and disruptive Uranus. And on the 19th, 20th, actually, it's on the 21st when Jupiter makes the exact half square to Saturn. That's the exact, but it's within a degree all month, but it makes it exact on the 21st. And then it makes the exact half square with Uranus on the other side on September 28th. Now, this means that all toward the end, or all month, but building toward the end of the month, the question becomes, how much is too much? Remember, Jupiter's the planet of bigger, better, more. And whenever I talk about Jupiter, I always think of Mae West, who said too much of a good thing is a good thing. Well, that's not true. A sip of wine is great, but too much alcohol is not. Having a little bit of dessert is great, but too much sugar is not. In fact, the dis-ease Cancer is actually like Jupiter out of control, because Jupiter is expansive, 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 whereas when Jupiter is best functioning, it's contained by Saturn, by the structures. If Saturn isn't there, if Dad's not home, the party gets out of hand. So again, we have this dance between Jupiter's too much and Saturn having to hold it back, and Jupiter's too much and Uranus saying, well, too much may not be right to break through everything, but if we can keep it in control, if we don't lose our perspective, we have an opportunity here to change things in a very big way, where we can find some middle path between the overly structured and the no structure at all, which I think again and again is the key. And maybe the key to the month is finding that what the Buddhists call the middle path, where there's extremes of feeling on either side. and somehow by staying in that middle, that's where we can accomplish the most. But as we move on, September 24th, now Venus is opposed Neptune. Remember, the Sun was opposed Neptune. The Sun was opposed Neptune on September 16th. Venus opposes Neptune on September 24th. Again, fantasy, dreams, illusions. And remember, whenever Neptune is involved, it's difficult sometimes to separate the idea of imagination and dreams. Remember, dreams are what motivate us forward. Dreams are like invisible scaffolding that enables us to use Saturn to build reality on. My astrologer friend Caroline Casey says that imagination lays the tracks for the reality train to follow. And Neptune is that function, but Neptune is also another kind of dream. It's nightmares, it's fears. Neptune is delusions. In the old astrology, when Neptune was first discovered in the mid late 1800s, Neptune was considered to just be delusional. It was the planet of insane asylums. It was about being misled and deceit, and that is still there. But as long as we can kind of keep some perspective on things, that dream becomes it's romance when Venus, the planet of love, opposes or is in a line with Neptune, the planet of dreams. Love and dreams is romance. So that's the 24th. And as we move on to the 25th, we get to the new moon in Libra. By the way, we skipped over an important date, and that is the equinox, the day, 2 equinoxes a year when there's equal day and night on the planet. And the equinox is on September 22nd, actually 6:03 p.m. And the equinox is when the sun moves from Virgo to Libra, or when the sun moves from Pisces to Aries. In the northern hemisphere, when the sun moves from Virgo to Libra, that's the autumn, the fall, the autumnal equinox. But for our friends down under, whether it be in South Africa or Australia, in those places, it's the opposite. This is the rather than the autumn equinox, it's the vernal or spring equinox. But either way, the equinox is a balance point, and it's an important astrological point to mention. As we move toward the 25th, on the 25th at 2:54 p.m., that's the Libra. Remember, the sun has moved into Libra on the equinox on the 22nd. And on the 25th, the new moon in Libra at 2:54 p.m. is another very powerful new moon. It's like the lunations this month are both strong, and they're both kind of more, I don't want to say easier, but they both have some positive energy to them. This new moon, because the sun is now in Libra, the sun and the moon now in Libra, just moving into Libra, are both opposite Jupiter. Familiar theme. The first of the month, we had Mercury opposite Jupiter. Then we had in the middle of the month, retrograde Mercury opposite Jupiter. Now we have the new moon, the sun and the moon opposite Jupiter. And again, we're tempted to see the potential and the possibility and make it happen now. And yet, once again, we have to remember Mercury is retrograde. Mercury now is retrograded back into Virgo. We have to choose our battles, choose our goals. If we take on too much, we won't. It's like if we're attracted to too many cool things and we want to go to too many cool places all at once, we end up not going anywhere at all. So there's this whole theme about managing the expansive energy of Jupiter, backing up into early Aries. Remember, Jupiter actually backs all the way into Pisces, and then it turns direct again. And by the end of the year, it's back in Aries and moving forward. Jupiter is very dynamic all month. but it's not dynamic because it's moving so fast. It's dynamic because it's holding that position, not only with planets going opposite it, Mercury, the sun, and the moon, but also because of its half square to Saturn and Uranus, which are getting closer and closer to the square. Another thing about this new moon is that Venus is now trine to Pluto. Remember a few days ago, the sun was trine to Pluto. And I said that was like money in the bank. That sun trine to Pluto was actually on September 18th. Now with Venus trine Pluto, what we like, Venus, is nothing shallow. We're attracted towards finding the real meaning of value, things that are real. We want to go deep. We want to get under the surface. Venus trine Pluto is just not interested in distractions. That's cool, except Mars is still in Gemini. And so we have a bit of kind of a being, a dilemma, because we're being pulled in different directions at the same time. But I think that this new moon ultimately is a new moon that gives us power, and it gives us the ability to use our dreams and to create new goals for the future. This is a new moon. This is a seed period. And I think that this seed period is something that is moving towards something new, not towards something that's the same old or replay of events that we've been overwhelmed with for the last 2-3 years. As we get closer to the end of the month, excuse me again, the sun opposes Jupiter on the 26th. At the new moon, the sun is already within a degree of that. So these are the two biggest things in the solar system. Again, it's like everything is getting bigger, better, more, and how much can overspending. We go, yeah, I want to buy a new blah, 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 blah. And you go down to buy it, and then you see one that's twice the price, and you go, wow, that would be better. And then you see one that's and you end up kind of talking yourself into more and more and more. Jupiter opposed the sun is inflationary, and economically, we might look at what's going on with inflation, not only through this whole time period, but certainly through the end of the month or through this month as planets are opposing Jupiter. Mercury continues retrograding on the 27th. Mercury is again trine Pluto. Now it's not so much like we have extra power in our batteries. That was the sun trine Pluto. It's not like we're drawn toward deep and meaningful experiences. That was Venus trine Pluto. Now with Mercury trine Pluto, we want to know the truth. We want to get to the bottom of things. Mercury, intellect, interaction. We don't want to waste energy telling jokes now. We want to get to the jugular vein of reality by knowing what's real and what's true. Mercury is back in Virgo. It's one of its home signs. And Mercury in Virgo, unlike Gemini, in Virgo, Mercury just wants to know what's useful, what's effective, what's efficient. In Gemini, it doesn't care what's useful, effective, or efficient. It doesn't even care what's true. It just wants to connect the dots. And remember, that's where Mars is, and that's the distraction thing that's going on all month. On September 27th, a very powerful day, we also have Mars forming a trine with Saturn. This is one of the best tools for organization that astrology can offer us. Why? Because Mars is the gas pedal, Saturn is the brake. Often we think of them as being in conflict. Mars is go for it, Saturn says stop. Well, when they're trine, they are working smoothly together, which enables us to accomplish a lot and to organize things so that we can work with them rather than being overwhelmed with them. I think if we have projects, it's the end of September when we really want to give them structure. And then by the very end of the month, on the 28th, Jupiter makes the other half square to Uranus. Again, that can feel like it's too much. because both Jupiter and Uranus are both expansive in their own way. And then by the 29th, Venus moves into Libra. And Venus loves being in Libra because it's one of Venus's home signs. And in Libra, Venus just likes everything to be in balance. And it's quite a month. And I know I ripped through it, but you'll see that all the things, or many of the things, are still coming back to the same dilemma of there's so much going on, we're moving so fast, there's so many temptations, there's all kinds of conflict and change going on, and yet we're not going to arrive at what our destination is as quickly as we'd like to think.
It begs the question. I mean, so throughout the whole entire forecast, I was hearing like you're gonna want to overspend, or you're gonna want to expand. You're gonna think that you should. You're gonna be tempted to sort of bite off more than you can chew. But don't do that. Like, be careful, be more cautious, be more conservative in what you say yes to and how big you allow certain things in your life to.
That is absolutely true, except it's just as dangerous being overly conservative as is being overly expansive.
Right. I heard that too, where it's like there is also an opportunity in this that you could harness as long. It's like we need to be prudent about it. We need to think it through a little bit more. Prudent. Okay. And my question is, when do you see it sort of opening up, if it does? Because you made several comments about like there is energy here, there is the opportunity to expand, but just be careful about how much you do right now. And so I wrote the word like patience, have some patience with this too.
Yeah, and remember, patience isn't just waiting. Patience is what you do when you're waiting.
Yes, Madeline, kindergarten teacher, always said that patience is waiting with peace. So that's one way to look at it. But Rick,
for a kid, it may be waiting for peace, but for an adult who's trying to accomplish something, it may be waiting with actual practice and discipline towards what it is that you want to do, without thinking that those things need to be acknowledged or have effect. In other words, we're still working on the cause side of things, and just because we're not getting there, that doesn't mean we should just stop and wait.
Right. And yes, I heard also that this is not the time to give up either. Like if it's not moving as quickly as you want it to, if it's not opening up as much as you want it to, also don't just, like you always say, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater and just give up on the whole thing. Right. My question is,
you know why I always say that is that Johannes Kepler is the first person who wrote that. In reference to astrology, he was cautioning modern day scientists in their look at the blasphemies held in ancient astrology, not to throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Yes. So my question is, I think I've said that like 5 times. When does that change? When all the planets turn direct? Is that when we're seeing more of an opening and less of this like kind of running to stand still sort of feeling?
Well, it's tricky because Mars stays in Gemini all the way through March.
Right.
But Jupiter, which backs up into Pisces and then moves into Aries for real and blasts through Aries, I think that's going to be a huge push forward. A lot of at least what's going on in the United States, and I know that we have many listeners here from other countries, and I think a few from other planets, actually. But at least in the United States, a lot of the determination of how we move forward will be determined on November 8th, 1 week after Mars turns retrograde, on a day when there is a lunar eclipse, while that lunar eclipse is conjuncting Uranus and squaring Saturn. So we have to get over that speed bump before we really know. In olden days, I like to tell the story. I've told the story to many of my clients. in olden days, when the clipper ships didn't have Panama Canal to go through, and they were going from New York to San Francisco, or New York all the way to India, they would go around South America, around Tierra del Fuego, which is one of the most dangerous sailing points on the planet. Most people don't realize that the Pacific Ocean is a few feet higher than the Atlantic Ocean. How can that be? But it is. And so sailing from the Atlantic to the Pacific can sometimes take, just to get around that bend, can take days, weeks, sometimes even months, because the weather is so horrendous. The deal was, because they were ships that depended on the weather and the wind, they didn't have their own power. They couldn't figure out when they would get to San Francisco or to the Far East until after they were around the bend. And so the effort had to be focused on what was going on now rather than the long term. Now, I know I've said that again and again, we need to focus on the long term, the long term, the long term. The problem, though, is that until we get around this little bend, we don't know what that long term is going to be or where our energies ultimately need to be focused on. I think Election Day in the United States will tell us a lot. I have a feeling that I know what I would like it to tell us, but everyone's feelings are different. And I'm not here to lay my beliefs, either personal or political, on others. However, I think that's going to be an important tipping point. The other thing, though, is that, yeah, right now planets are absolutely, if not all, retrograde. Venus is not retrograde. And although Mars isn't yet, it's might as well be. And starting in the latter winter and then on through the spring, those planets will one at a time turn from retrograde to direct, and we'll see some more movement ahead. But I really think it's Jupiter right now. It's two things holding us in place. One is the last of the Saturn Uranus square, which, as we looked at the mechanics of, is as close to being square as it'll get, again, the end of this month. But because other things are moving in and out of it, it'll be another month or two before that begins to wane. And then secondly, Jupiter in that mix right now, half squaring both of them, and Jupiter backing up into Pisces. And it really won't be until after Jupiter backs into Pisces and then goes direct and then back into Aries. Jupiter goes into Pisces, I think, the end of November, and only stays there for about a month. It just tips in, and then it shoots back into Aries. And I think when that happens, and then finally when Mars turns direct in January, all of these things, Mars turns direct in January, all of these things will kind of add up to, freedom to move forward again. But remember, even when we move forward, we move backward and forward, kind of like, that old saying, 2 steps forward, 1 step backward, 2 steps forward, 3 steps backward, 5 steps forward, 1 step. We move forward. There's never any, okay, now we're free, let's go. We always have that undertow, the cross currents, the rip tides pulling in different directions, even though the tide's going that way.
Okay, I like a few things Lori Blue says. Think before you act with awareness and determination, and then also discrimination with future sight on your big goals.
Yeah.
So again, Rick, if you had to choose between the two themes that you gave us, or the two things that came out, there was going nowhere fast, but then you also said the key is finding the middle path. Yeah. So which one do you think is going to be the most helpful for us?
I think finding the middle path is actually, is we have to be careful about middle path, though, because, moderation, as Oscar Wilde said, is good in moderation.
Yeah.
That sometimes when we are moderating everything, we're compromising things that shouldn't be compromised. I think Devin has the most important question. And Devin wrote, how do we know when to be cautious or when to push through? And the answer is, we don't. But you know, but that doesn't mean that we can't be that we can't make educated guesses based upon what's going on. If we watch and stop and look and listen and think and constantly come back to the am I missing something? Should I be more cautious here? Or am I being overly cautious? And can I really kind of take a chance here, even if it doesn't work? Will it end up being something that I will regret if I don't do? I don't think there's a one size or one answer that fits all. But I do think that how do we know when to be cautious or when to push through? We pay attention. That's how we know. And of course, as we also know, when Mercury is retrograde, which will be retrograde for 2/3 of this month, when Mercury is retrograde, we don't pay attention. That's why we screw up when Mercury is retrograde, because Mercury, as it's retrograde, the planet is closer to Earth. And it's information, Mercury, intellect, Mercury, communication, Mercury, it's all heightened and speeded up so fast that we're so distracted that when something happens, it's like, yep, go, do it. And we don't pay attention. You know, the idea of don't sign a contract or don't buy a car or don't buy a house when Mercury is retrograde is just plain foolhardy. I mean, Mercury is retrograde 2.5 months a year. You know, if you're out looking, I had a client a while back, and this is something that I've been known to say many times. Client called me up, panic struck. You know, we've been looking for 2 years to buy a house, and one that's come up, you know, and it's perfect, but Mercury just turned retrograde. You know, what should I do? And my question is it a good deal or not? You know, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't do things. It means that you shouldn't do something that isn't thought out. And our tendency is to get so excited in the moment and think that there's no time. And that if I don't do it, here's the other thing. The feeling of if I don't do it now, I'll miss that chance to do it. That's a clue that Mercury retrograde is working, because it's like that panic state of having to do it without having the attorney read over the contract. Oh my God, if I take this home and have the attorney read over the contract, then I'll lose the possibility of making the deal. Well, then lose the deal.
Okay.
Don't take shortcuts while Mercury is retrograde. And don't come up with a new idea and act on it in the same day. You know, it's different if you've been thinking about buying the purple Porsche for 2 years and then you see one and then you go out and buy it. But if you've been thinking about buying a car and you go out and the first car you see is a purple Porsche and you go, wow, that's cool, and the price is amazing, you drive it home and they go, oh my God, what am I going to do with my wife and my dog? Because you're so excited in the moment, you forget that you really need a station wagon or whatever. That's what happens when Mercury is retrograde.
Okay. Wow. Great stuff, Rick. Thank you so much. I'll do as quick as I can on a summary. So we're looking at a theme. The first thing you talked about was going nowhere fast. And I think it's helpful to keep that in mind to help you with any frustrated feelings that you might feel throughout the month if things aren't moving as fast as you would like them to. That's kind of the energy that we're dealing with. You said there's 2 things that slow us down, even though it should feel fast because Mars is in Gemini. But you said the 2 things that are going to slow this down is Mercury retrograde on September 9th. And then Mars retrograde, which is going to be happening, but it's already slowing down. So we have these things. And then a plus you added later that we have all these other planets in retrograde as well. You said that there is going to be some frustration, but there's also some breakthrough energy this month. You said watch out for overcommitting, biting off more than we can chew. You said also be careful of saying yes and then having that thought of like, okay, I'm going to say yes, and then I'm going to figure it out later. That, again, think these things through. And if you feel like you should, because you might miss out, that's your red flag moment. You said also Venus is moving into Virgo, which is going to help us, instead of being more attracted to very expressed love, we're going to be more attracted to what's useful, effective, and efficient. On the 10th, we have a full moon in Pisces. You like the full moon and the new moon, this lunar cycle. You're saying There's pretty good energy around them.
Yeah.
You said that there's going to be a dream and fullness of imagination on this full moon. And also there could be a personal and or collective woe, you said. And I put woe in all caps, like,
Well,
whoa.
hold on. That woe is WOAH, not WOE.
Oh, right. I put WHOAH.
Oh, that's the way it's spelled.
Yeah. Whoa.
Thanks.
Who would have thought? Yeah, it's who would have thought.
Not a whoa.
Right.
Okay.
Not really me. A whoa. Amazing. So changes that you've been trying to make, the things that have been hard for you, it may happen easily and quickly. And it's like, oh my gosh, how did that happen? On the 16th, you said this is a very important day. So circle this day in your calendar. Venus is forming a square with Mars. And you said that this can either be one of two things: sparks flying, playfulness, sparring, dancing, like very kind of attraction sort of energy, or it can be arguments and conflict. And you said that paying attention to respect in our relationships will help you tend towards the first one, which sounds a lot more fun than the second one.
It does.
On the 16th, also, Sun is opposite Neptune. So dreams, illusion, deception, fake news, seeing things as we are, not as they are. So remembering that. On the 18th, retro Mercury is opposing Jupiter. And then again, this is this overcommitment thing. Be careful of huge expectations. Don't give up. It will happen, but it will take time. So maybe some idea of like slow and steady wins the race here too might help. Yeah.
Yeah. A little bit, bring in a little bit of mental Taurus,
Yeah.
the tortoise energy.
Yeah. Okay. On the 18th, Sun trines Pluto. You said this is like a battery storing power. We're something about like reorganizing that's happening in the underworld, more energy towards transformation. And you said to be patient, though, not to think that you should be able to see the result of that transformation yet. It's more like you're sort of garnering your power in those places that are less seen. On the 19th, we have Venus trine Uranus. We may be attracted to taboo things, out of the box attraction. There's an adrenaline rush on this. Some people thrive on this, some fear it. And just remember that you don't have to act on the attraction, even if you find yourself being attracted to something new and unusual. On the 21st and 28th, Jupiter half square between Saturn and Uranus square. Yeah, did I say that right? Okay. This how much is too much? And I wrote too much birthday. I don't know if you guys remember the Berenstain Bears, those children's books. There's one of them that's called Too Much Birthday, and it's so cute. She just like totally overdoes it on her birthday and has a complete meltdown, and it's very cute. So I wrote that down. So just be careful of that overdoing it sort of energy.
Extravagance.
Yeah. And but then you also said, don't keep, this is what you said. This is helpful. If you can keep the too muchness in control, then there could be a way to use this energy for positive change.
Yeah.
So it's like riding this very interesting line. The equinox is on September 22nd. On September 24th, this is fantasy, dreams, illusions, difficult to separate imagination and dreams from reality. Keep perspective. On the 25th, we have the new moon in Libra. Again, you said good energy, power, and use dreams to create new goals for the future. So there's power. Yeah, use dreams to create new goals for the future. And I wrote don't overspend in all caps. That might have been
over extravagant. So too much. Jupiter.
Yes, exactly. And then we have on the 20th, a great day to organize, accomplish, work with versus overwhelm. So we're going to feel like we can kind of like wrangle in a lot of loose ends.
Yeah.
And finally, don't take shortcuts when Mercury is in retrograde. You can sign things, you can move things forward, just don't rush it and read the fine print.
Right.
And think it through. Okay. That's it. That's an amazing month.
You are an amazing note taker. I don't know how you do that.
It looks like this. Scribbles, stars.
I don't care what it looks like. It's amazing that you can do that with such accuracy and still stay in touch with the conversation. It's amazing.
It was funny at the event. Someone said, "I've been trying to figure out how you do this, and I've been thinking that maybe you all plan it beforehand and you know what's going to be said." And I'm like, I don't. That would be amazing, but I don't. But it's I got trained in college, and it's becoming useful now. Okay. Thank you, everybody, so much for being here. Rick, thank you for that very comprehensive, sweeping overview of September. Congratulations on your award. There's one award that we didn't talk about that you got nominated for. I know you didn't win, but I think a lot of people here would have cast their vote for you, which was the Living Legend Award in astrology. So
I don't want to be a living legend while I'm alive. I just want to be a human.
You kind of are.
Whatever.
The reluctant living legend. Okay.
However, that Rob Hand won it. It would have been an embarrassment if anyone had won it other than Rob Hand, because he is the living legend of astrology on the planet right now.
Yeah. Wow. Well, what I was amazed by again for the millionth time is how incredible this community of astrologers are, and then also astrology lovers. And even more than that, I mean, I've always known how intelligent and passionate and committed everybody is, but to be able to be there in person and to feel people's hearts and to really feel the genuine care and sincerity that is in this community, it was overwhelming. I can't tell you how many times I cried. It was just like, oh my God, this is.
And the coolest thing from my perspective is I get to do it again in 2 weeks at a much smaller conference at Lilydale, New York. Lilydale, the home of the American Spiritualist Church. Anyone in the Western New York or Ohio, Lilydale is south of Buffalo. So it's Erie, Pennsylvania, and Cleveland and that whole area. It's a weekend conference. It's going to be delightful. I'm doing a full day post conference. TheAstrologyGathering.com, one word, The Astrology Gathering. If you missed ISAR and want another fix, or went to ISAR and it was so amazing you want another fix, see you in a couple of weeks.
I'm tempted to fly out. I'm serious. I can't wait for the next event. If you have not yet taken Rick's foundation courses, I highly encourage you to check them out. If you love Rick's teaching style and you are wanting more astrological acumen and you love Rick's unique approach, like you like his perspective and you want to learn his approach to astrology, our Astrology Foundations series that we've created with Rick is a great place to start. You can go to astrologyhub.com/foundations1. Is it foundations or foundation? Yeah, foundations1. And that's a great place to start. And then if you want foundations 2 and you want to do the chart reading extravaganza bundle, there is an option to actually get all of Rick's courses from us at a nice discounted price too. So that's at astrologyhub.com/Levine bundle. And that's available right now as well. Anything else you want to say, Rick?
No, just thank you for your role in whatever the awards were that I won, however that all happened, and I appreciate you. That's all.
Oh, so nice. I appreciate you too, Rick. I remember a very special moment where I was like, Rick, can I please give you a hug? Just because I can. Just because we're here. And so we did. And it's been so sweet. So, and thanks to all of you who I also got to hug at that event.
Let me interrupt just for a second. A couple of people said, hope your daughter is doing well, Rick. And thank you all for your support. She's fine. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, great. I'm glad to hear that about Faith. Wonderful. Okay, everybody, take care. We will catch you on the next episode. Thank you so much for being a part of our community. And as always, for making astrology a part of your life. Take care, everyone.